morning, grinders. Hey, it's the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, a.k.a. Blender HD, because I couldn't get that Twitter name. I couldn't, people call it Blender HD, and then I just use it everywhere. It's not a blender on high definition. It's Blenderhead. But it's also me on top of you on in GPPs, hopefully. Not yesterday, but maybe today. And this is the DFS pregame show where we go over yesterday's slate. We do a little bit of review. We go over some strategy. We take a first look at today's MLB slate and look at potential places that we could go to get a little bit different than the field in GPPs. Mostly a GPP focus show, large field GPPs primarily. And this is what I do every morning. This is kind of a ritual. I'm just doing it with you on YouTube. So I see all the YouTube people here. Bradley, play whatever you want. You got your coffee. Right. If you got your coffee, Devin probably has some coffee. I got water because I don't drink coffee anymore. To keep that coffee hot, you got to hit the thumbs up button. So if everyone that's watching, in order to keep your coffee hot, or you want your lineups to do well, why not? If you want your lineups to do well, you got to hit the thumbs up button. If you want your opponent's lineups to do poorly, you hit the thumbs down button. I don't think it matters. I think YouTube doesn't care as long as you hit buttons, right? We got Ronald Coley here. We got Eric, whatever. I can't pronounce your last name. Joe Babcock, good morning. Tony Tischhauser, right? They're talking about whether or not baseball is going to even happen. The Phillies have no positive tests, so they're playing tonight, okay? So the Yankees-Phillies game is on, but there may be some weather issues. So I don't. Maybe they don't end up playing. Maybe it's karma or something like that. But I prioritize the YouTube people here. If you show up live, I know a lot of people listen to the show later on the podcast, or they view it later on YouTube. If you're viewing it later, hit the thumbs up button anyway. But if you're on YouTube, I answer your questions. So if you have any questions about strategy, about last night's slate, today's slate, the less of the picks. I don't know who the picks are yet. I mean, I'm looking at it for the first time myself, okay? And I'm looking at yesterday's slate and what some of the better players, the top MME players in the 150 max GPP last night, because I do play that. I don't play 150 entries, but I'll play 50, 60 entries into that and see what they did. How did they get different? Where did they get their leverage? So I see all the people in the chat. I see Sean George, Chandler WH, right? Joe Babcock's here, right? Yesterday's slate was interesting in a way that, it was a 6-game slate, first off. So, yeah, the options were limited. I think at pitcher, I wasn't satisfied with anyone at pitcher, right? I mean, it was that type of thing that Dylan Cease, I thought, was the de facto point per dollar kind of chalk guy. Like, okay, against the Royals, why not? Junis with his first start, I know he was cheaper, but I didn't think he would go past 4 innings in his first start. I mean, he ended up being 22% owned and got hit up by the White Sox. So I wanted to stay away from Junis. I thought that the chalk combination would be some combination of Lester, Chirinos, and Cease. But the problem is that if you play 2 of these guys, it's hard to stack either of the teams in cores. So if you were going to play two of these, I want to call them top pitchers, you could play a 3-man Padres, 3-man Rockies, but it's going to be very hard to play a 5-man of each. So in order to play 5 mans of cores, you have to go down kind of into the dumpster. I thought the most popular options were going to be in the Mets Braves game, Wright Peterson and Tommy Milone. I went, which was good for me, I went very heavy on Tommy Milone, only because I thought that people would be more likely to stack against him with the Rays, using them as fillers. I mean, the Rays weren't like cheap, but they were still cheaper than cores. So I figured that I'm not going to get very different if I'm playing like Cease, Chirinos, and then take cores and White Sox, right? I didn't think I would be that different. So I wanted to look at the cheaper options for the teams, for the lineups that were going to play cores. It was probably going to be one of these 3 pitchers, Lester, Chirinos, or Cease, or Savali, right? One of the expensive pitchers, and one of the kind of cheaper pitchers, Wright, Peterson, Milone. I thought people didn't want to play Milone, so I played more Milone. And since people were playing Wright and Peterson, 17%, 11%, that I would use the Mets and the Braves as more of my stacks. So I would use the White Sox against Junis because I didn't want to play him at all because I didn't think he would go 5 innings. I thought he would be popular enough, and he was 22%. So that's kind of my strategy on yesterday's slate. I could have done it with Chirinos. I could have said, okay, I could have stacked the Royals against Cease as chalk. I could have stacked the Orioles. I could have stacked the Pirates. I just thought that the Mets and the Braves and the Twins, because I also played a lot of Twins against Savali. I thought these were the pitchers to attack because they got enough ownership and the offenses are good. Mets offense is pretty good. The Braves offense is good, and the Twins offense is definitely good. Rather than try to play the Pirates against Leicester or the Rays against the Orioles against Chirinos, something like that. That was my thought process. So while Tommy Milone came in at 8%, I had 38% exposure to Tommy Milone. I didn't even think about Senzatella, but if you're going to do well in cores, so be it. So whatever, you get 25 points at 9%. But across the board, you could see even like Ricky D, a lot of Kyle Wright, JBC, a lot of Kyle Wright. Savali, a lot of the top players did not play, but they were owned in the lower stakes contest a little bit more. I saw some people even like Steven Brault. He was just extremely efficient in 3 innings, right? He had to get you, he got 5 or 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. That's the only way he could have gotten there. I mean, I wasn't thrilled to play Lester. I mean, are you thrilled to play Lester? Are you thrilled to play Yanni Chirinos? No. But I mean, that was my thought process. But you can see here, we take out the pitchers. Now we go to the field. The kind of the chalk was the White Sox and Coors, right? Because the White Sox were cheap enough on this slate. So we see some ownerships and we see like Ricky D, a lot of Tampa Bay. Like he a lot of his lineups went downhill. I mean, he had Brandon Lowe. He did hit a home run, but he had a lot of Tampa Bay. But that went along with, you see his pitcher ownership. Lester, let's get the pitcher ownership here. Right, Kyle Wright, Lester, Tampa Bay, and Coors. Right, so that went along with what he was playing. So we can take a look down on the ownership. See, E. Hafner, heavy on the White Sox. Heavy on the White Sox. Then we got some Cubs here. We get Ricky D, heavy on the Rays. Colin Bennett, heavy on White Sox and Rays and some Braves and Cubs mixed in. Yeah, a lot more in the Cubs for Colin Bennett. Raging Phillip, lot of Coors in Cleveland. And I had Cleveland also. He's some Mets here. Let's scroll down even more. Yeah, Cleveland. So Raging Phillip his Cleveland lineups didn't really get there. But really, you need White Sox and Coors, right? Did you have White Sox, Padres, Colorado? I'm just looking across. This is what I do every morning. I mean, I don't just look at six guys, right? 6 users. I just pulled out 6 just because it fits on my screen easier. But I could look at 20, 30 different players. Not saying like, oh, they picked the guy and I didn't pick it. Just like, what was the constructions that they were going with? But I explained my thought process. So like they would look at mine and go, okay, I understand what you did, right? I mean, the Braves kind of got there, but didn't really get there. I didn't stack 5-man as much yesterday. On a 6-game slate, I played a lot more 4-3-1 lineups on DraftKings. Because the more games that there are, if it's a 12-game slate, near all of my lineups are going to be 5-man stacks. Either 5-3 or 5X. On shorter slates, where there's less likely of one team putting up 10-plus runs, okay, 4-3-1. That doesn't mean I don't play 5-man stacks, but I'm more inclined to play more 4-3-1s. I could play 50-50 or something like that. So that's a general theory of the bigger the slate in MLB, the more you should stack. The smaller the slate, the less that you should stack. Doesn't mean you don't stack, but just less inclined. More inclined, less inclined. Always think in those terms. Less inclined, more likely, less likely, not you must or you can't. Okay? You could learn that in my course. I got a new audio course out. 15 hours. Go to theoryofdfs.com. I talk about that a lot. I talk mostly about this type of stuff. Not about the picks, more about the strategy of playing DFS as a game. Let's go into the chat. Yes Man scored 50 points yesterday. 50 points? Well, in total, that's not a good. I thought maybe 50 points at pitcher. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? You played DeCease and Eunice. Yeah, another bad day. I wouldn't have played them both in the same lineup. Most of the time, I mean, I guess, yes, on a 6-game slate, playing 2 pitchers from the same game, I guess is viable. But, I mean, you automatically limit the fact that only one of them could get the win. Cespedes opted out for the season. Yeah, we found Cespedes. Yeah, yesterday we were on Crunch Time. I did NBA Crunch Time with Will in the middle of the show. It's like Cespedes is missing. Where did he go? Is he at the strip club? No, he opted out. Alex Santi was Cubs heavy, very Cubs heavy. I had some Cubs. I don't think I had Cubs stacks. Let me take a look here. Did I play Cubs stack? No. I played them mostly as like 2-mans, 3-mans, 1-offs, right? Didn't work well, right? I did a lot of the Indians. When are the Indians going to hit again? I remember the Indians were a good hitting team. Apparently they aren't anymore. What happened with the Indians? I look at their prices and I go, okay, Cesar Hernandez, okay, serviceable. Jose Ramirez, okay, giving to me. Lindor, okay. Santana, Framil Reyes, he wasn't in the game yesterday. I'm like, where's the offense? I see them scoring 1 run, 2 runs every game, or 0 runs. What happened? At some point, the Indians are going to do well, and I'm going to have them, I hope. Tony Tischauer says, bigger slates, more stacking. Are you also using more spreading ownership in teams? Possibly. I mean, there are some slates where I may see 1 or 2 teams that are popping in the bat and like are going way under owned that I just decide to play a lot of them. Instead of playing like 6 teams across, 50, 60 lineups, maybe I only play 2 or 3. And I'm heavily invested in those teams, but it really depends on the slate. Depends on the pitchers that are available. Because like I said on this slate before, with if you wanted to stack cores, you needed cheap pitching. Because the cores prices were expensive. To get Machado, Story, Arenado, Tatis, those guys, like you needed to take a Kyle Wright or a Peterson or a Malone or a Brault. I mean, look, that's what Raging Phillip and JBC did. And just say, whatever I get, I get. They got hot in 3 innings. He got 14 points. But, I mean, they were perfectly fine taking 8, I guess, in that spot. But that was the only way to do it yesterday. So it's all a construction thing. So, like yesterday, I only played 4 pitchers. Lester, Chirino, Cease, and Tommy Milone. That's why I had 38% Tommy Milone. Because I was playing against the Wright and Peterson ownership. Right? I wanted them to be owned. Because I'm playing Braves and Mets. I wanted Savali to be owned. I'm playing the Twins, right? I'm playing Kepler. I'm playing Cruz. I'm playing Garver at catcher at 4%, right? Because I'm expecting people to play Savali because look, the pitching options. Not very good. Vincent Pizzulo asks, do you use Slate IQ and target only leverage stack? Yes, I do use Slate IQ, but I don't necessarily only target leverage stacks. I'm targeting stacks that have a high win percentage that give me the most leverage. It doesn't mean I don't play a lineup. Like, let's go. Here's a Slate IQ yesterday. And this is premium. So I know this is a free show, but you're getting some premium stuff. So if you want to sign up for premium, go to rotogrinders.com/premium. You get this every day. You get Cheese's Goods Musings, the $1 Million Musings. You get the expert survey. You get the crunch time and the Slate IQ and the grind down. You get so much content and the Discord, which is always hopping. If you go to Slate IQ, like I'm not necessarily like looking at this is from yesterday. Okay. So looking at Slate IQ, I sort by winner. And I go, I mean, it's a 6-game slate. You're going to have negative leverage all over the place because it's overlapping. So I looked at here and this stood out. Cleveland, right? High win percentage towards the top, 6.2%, and positive leverage because there's not many with positive leverage. But look at all of this. You got Padres or White Sox, Rockies, Braves. Negative leverage, but there's still high chance to win. As long as I'm pairing these with lower owned plays, then it's fine. It doesn't matter that these are negative leverage. overall as a 4 or a 5-man stack. Because if I stack the Padres with Tommy Milone at 8% owned, and I have a Bradley Zimmer 1% one-off or something from the Indian, I'm good. So it doesn't matter that the stack in a vacuum is negative leverage. It just means that if I'm going to play Padres, I need to make them in much more different lineups. If I'm going to play the White Sox, I'm going to have to get a little bit weird. And that's where I got a little bit weird with Milone, right? And then I have some Cleveland, right? Cleveland gives me positive leverage. So I had a lot of Padres plus Cleveland plus Milone. Padres plus Braves plus Milone. White Sox plus Brave. Like, overall, the lineup is going to be positive leverage, even though the stack in a vacuum isn't. It's a 6-game slate. It's very hard to find leverage in stacks unless you're playing, the Royals against Cease. Unless you're playing Baltimore against Chirinos. I mean, you can do that. But if I'm already choosing to get leverage with one of my pitchers and like a 1 or 2 man from Cleveland, then I can play the chalky. I can play the chalky stuff. You have to think of your lineup as a whole, not just the teams in a vacuum. There's a way to play heavily negative leverage stacks in Slate IQ and still have positive leverage lineups. Okay, going back into YouTube, the YouTube chat, the YouTube people are my most important people. So if you're listening to this later, you got to come live, 11 a.m. Eastern on most days, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, whenever it's scheduled. Any coupon codes for premium? I don't know. I'm not in charge of coupon codes. Use the coupon code, play whoever you want. It probably doesn't work, but use it anyway. Let's see what happens. Maybe PPWYW doesn't work. I don't know. Ronald Coley said, "I didn't know you guys had this leverage grade." Yeah, it's kind of like a top stack tool. It's kind of like it. It's not called that. It's called Slate IQ. No one else uses that name. And Slate IQ happened. I mean, this came out like 2 years ago. It even gives you like all the other stuff on Slate IQ. I don't even bother looking at. Okay, because first off, most of the time it's the same. We're analyzing, Slate IQ analyzes like all of the results DB database, all of the Draftkings database. It doesn't work for Fanduel because we don't have the database for that. But most of the stuff you see here, like, similar slates versus the average, is going to look the same nearly like every slate. Stack type leverage, 5-3, 5-2-1, 5-1-1-1. I mean, on a small slate, like a 6-game slate, you're going to see negative leverage all the time because it's almost everyone's going to be owned enough. But you're going to see most of the time that 5-man, nearly all the time, 5-man stacks will be positive leverage because the field doesn't stack enough. But it's going to move by like what, 1%, 0.5%. So like looking at this, like it's not going to change much on a day-to-day basis. Same for the pitcher combo leverage. It's not going to change much on a day-to-day basis. About like the actual pitchers and the hitters, I find it less valuable. It's less valuable to rely on because all it's looking at is that an $8,400 pitcher of certain ownership on a previous, like it doesn't say that it's like this doesn't mean Fernando Tatis. It just means a $5,900 from a previous slate. So it doesn't give you any context. So I don't necessarily care that much. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't think it's reliable. Same for the salary spent by position and hitters and pitcher. It's going to look the same most days, right? Winter salary tiers. Most of this information will look the same on most days. So the main thing I'm looking at is the team stacks because it considers price, it considers positions, and it considers projections. And that's what the basis of what I'm stacking based on, right? I mean, that's what I'm doing, right? How do I fit these stacks in together? Right? Because I'm looking at, like, if we look at today's slate, for instance. Because we take a look, let's say, at the Yankees, for instance, against Arrieta. I'm expecting the Yankees to be somewhat popular, right? 5.8 run total. Like, the positions in the stacks matters almost as much as the batting order. Okay? So, like, typically my rule, my general, I'm not saying it's not a hard, fast rule, is that home teams, if they do well, the 7, 8, and 9 hitters may not get an extra at bat. So I'm less likely. Remember, I'm using the terms less likely and more likely, not I don't do it or I do it. I'm less likely to use the bottom of the order for home teams, and I'm more likely to use the bottom of the order for road teams because they get the top of the ninth inning no matter what. Okay? And then I'm more likely to use middle infielders and catchers in a stack and less likely to use 3 outfielders in a stack because it fills up all on DraftKings. I mean, Fanduel, you have a utility spot. You could use that. So looking at teams, I look at like the Yankees and go, okay, how do I stack the Yankees? I get 2 middle infielders. I know Gary Sanchez has been horrible, but you could use Gary at 4,800 for Gary Sanchez striking out seemingly every at bat. Okay, I may throw him in, but I'm looking at this going, do I want to occupy all 3 outfield spots with Judge, Stanton, and Hicks and not have access to a one-off or a combination of another stack if I'm doing 5-3 by filling up all 3 outfield spots? Well, that's one thing I have to consider. So it's the type of stack where I'd rather, like, the cornerstones of my stacks for Yankees would be LeMahieu and Torres because they fill middle infield spots. So I'm more likely to stack 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, right? Something like that. Or 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 5, 6. Like Gardner being an outfielder, not scarce position, and at home at the bottom of the order, I'm less likely to use. So the projections take into account that lower plate appearance expectation. So that's what I'm looking at. So the positions and the order are as much as who they are. So if we could look over here at, for instance, let's go to a cheaper team. I mean, Minnesota's cheap today. I think Minnesota's going to be fairly chalky today, right? They have a 5.8 run total against Holland, right? If this is the order, assuming what Kepler's Kepler's batting lower in the order. This is the predicted order. I mean, this is a dream scenario because I get a catcher and a shortstop 1 and 2 in the order at home. I'm less likely to use Byron Buxton as an outfielder at the bottom of the lineup. But I'm more likely to use Adrianza if he's in for Arias because he's only 2,600 and he's at second base. Same for Marwin Gonzalez at third base. See, if I were to do this, I'd probably switch Marwin Gonzalez so he only appears as a third baseman. Maybe not as an outfielder because you have all these outfielders, right? Nelson Cruz probably chalky today, but I could see the stack being chalky, right? I could see Garver, Polanco, Cruz, some type of combination of that with either Marwin Gonzalez and then one of the lefties, either Kepler or Rosario. Sano's a little expensive, 4,100. But it fits. I get a catcher and a shortstop, and I get them in the top of the order for a home team. And I don't have to necessarily play an outfielder on the home team. So that's what I'm looking at. Say, how do they fit together? So let's say I wanted to play a Minnesota and Yankee stack. Well, obviously, I can't play Polanco and Torres together, right? But the Minnesota stack, if I don't want to play the 2 lefties, the outfielders, like I don't have to play Urshela. So let's put this together. How do we form this stack? Let's say we want to do a 5-3. I'm going to bring up lineup preview. This is how you would hand build, but this is kind of how lineup HQ works. How you build 5-3s, 5-2-1-1s. How do you build them together? How could you weave them together? So now that I don't have to use Sanchez striking out in the Yankees lineup, I can use Garver at catcher. Okay. Do I want to use Polanco or Torres? We'll see. Well, I want to use Judge. Okay. I may not have the money to pay for Stanton at 5,800 in the stack, but let's take Hicks. So I fill all 3 outfielders, right? I got 2 Yankees and a Minnesota guy, right? I need a second baseman. So I'm going to take LeMahieu over Adrianza. I'm going to need a first baseman. Instead of playing for Sano, I'm going to pay down and pay $4K for Voit. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to need a third baseman. There's Marwin Gonzalez instead of Urshela. So where's Marwin here? I could stick that in, right? And now I have the choice, right? Because I got 1, 2, 3. So I got a 4-3. If I want to make a 5-3, that would be Gleyber Torres. If I wanted to make a 4-4, that would be Jorge Polanco. So there you go, 5-3 with the Twins. You get average remaining salary, 8,100. You go to pitcher. Let's see what we can make pitcher-wise happen. I don't know if we could get Cole in this lineup. Let's see. Can we get Cole and a 59? We probably can't do that. We could get, let's see, Soroka and the $6,900 pitcher. Maybe You can figure out a way to put the pitchers together. Maybe Rodon and 9,300. Rodon is 7. You get Danny Duffy, I guess. And I'm just doing this by, I'm not saying you should play Soroka and Duffy and leave 300 on the table. But there you go. Here's the 5-3. Here, it fits together well because the positions line up well with these two teams. You get a 5-3 Yankees, Minnesota. But let's say you wanted to play Adrianza here instead. Let's go to hitters. Because you want to keep the stack size cheaper. You go to Adrianza. You plug him in. So you're playing kind of bottom of the order over here. It gives you 1,800 left. So now you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're playing, this is a 4-4. It gives you 1,800 left. So now we could get up. Now we could get up to Cole. Gives you 200 left from Danny Duffy. Yeah, and there you go. A 4-4. And now you got Cole and Duffy. You're playing Adrianza and Gonzalez now. But let's say you wanted to, well, you wouldn't play Sanchez here. No, I mean, you would do something like this. Yeah. You could play Polanco instead here and make it a 5-3. Right? We're going to go to hitter. Make it a 5-3. You got 500 remaining. Let's go to pitchers now. We could upgrade Duffy if you wanted to. Upgrade Duffy. We got 7,100. And there you go. Carlos Rodon. There's that lineup. Right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-man Minnesota, 3-man Yankees, White, and the Cole Rodon lineup. There you go. This is how you'd build for single entry, hand build. Even if you're just building a couple of lineups for the big field GPPs. How do the lineups fit together? What positions? It's kind of hard when you're going to stack two teams that like all their best players are all in the outfield, or all their best players fill middle corner infield positions. Right? You're going to play the White Sox today, right? Let's say you play White Sox today. Most likely you're playing Abreu or Encarnacion. I mean, they have 2 first basemen eligible, right? So you're going to go and you're going to play the White Sox. I mean, you're going to fill up your first baseman position. So the team that you should be stacking with them probably has a weaker first baseman that isn't in the middle of the order, right? So let's say we're stacking White Sox, for instance. We're going to do this. Let's go by order. We're going to take Robert or Robert. I don't know. Moncada at third. Eloy. And McCann, maybe. Something like that. So we need 2 middle infielders. Right? Well, the Yankees, right? I mean, we're going to need cheap pitching if we did that. So you have to look and say, okay, would I rather play Moncada, Abreu? Would I rather play Eloy? Maybe I don't play Eloy and I play Lurie Garcia in a shortstop spot. So I get access to 2 outfielders and I already have a cheap shortstop. Now, now we're going to go to the Yankees and I could get LeMahieu, Judge, and Hicks. 8,500 remaining. And there you go. I could get probably can't get Cole. But let's say instead of Hicks, I go up to Stanton, 7,800 remaining. I go to pitcher, and now I could get 2 of the 7K to 8K pitchers, right? And they fit in together. But it's less likely to play Voit in the stack when the White Sox have 2 first basemen eligible. So how do you fit the stacks together? Not just the teams, the positions, the batting order. How do they fit together well? So I hope that's a good explanation of like that's my thought process. And it's not just hand building. I mean, I do that when I build my player pool. So I don't just leave everyone in. I go, how do these teams fit together? I look at Slate IQ and I go, okay, how do these teams fit together? If I play the Mets, well, I'm going to have to leave a lot of first base availability for Pete Alonso. Because the Mets stack goes off, it's going to, I mean, maybe, yeah, Pete Alonso could go 0 for 5 in the middle of it, but likely not. So I'm going to have to play less stacks. I'm going to have less first base exposure to other teams. If I'm going to play the Yankees, I'm most likely going to need an outfield, at least one outfield spot, right? I see it's very hard for the Yankees to be the top stack and Judge, Stanton, and Hicks go over, right? I'm gonna need an outfield spot for one of them at least, if not 2. Same for Minnesota. It's kind of hard to see Cruz, Rosario, Kepler, like for no outfielders on the Minnesota. You have a 5-man stack and it doesn't include any outfielders, right? So you have to think in those terms. So if you have any questions, general strategy, today's slate, yesterday's slate, anything on YouTube, while you're at it, keep the coffee hot by hitting that thumbs up button. David Murray asked Danny Duffy for cash. Yeah, I think he's fine. We take a look at I have the Bat X projections for pitcher. It looks like you're probably going to play Cole with one of these three guys. That's what it looks like. In cash, I guess, on this slate. You're going to play Cole with either Montes, Rodon, or Duffy. I think they're all fine. And if you're going to stack expensive bats, you're going to take two of them. I think you're probably playing Cole over DeGrom. I think Paddock is the most interesting. People aren't going to want to play him against the Dodgers, but he's 7,600, and he's a good pitcher. And they're playing in San Diego, so that's a decent ballpark. So maybe interesting for GPPs, maybe not cash against the Dodgers. Off the board Tony plays today, I just said so. But I have to wait until ownership. Like, I don't know. Jamino's the hamster wheels, they haven't been turning yet. That'll come in the afternoon. So I'll have to see whether or not, how these guys fit in. So I don't think no one's playing the Coors pitchers. I don't think anyone's playing Walker Buehler, most likely on a pitch limit for 10-3. Soroka is usable, but I mean, he's a better real life pitcher than he is a DFS pitcher. I mean, he could pitch 6-7 innings, but just have 2 strikeouts. Run prevention. I wouldn't touch Arrieta against the Yankees. Brett Anderson Brett Anderson is probably a decent throwing pitcher, but he'll get 1 strike. I mean, it doesn't matter. Well, the White Sox have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. Yeah, but Brett Anderson has like a 12% strikeout rate, right? Do you want to play Derek Holland against the Twins? I don't. Alec Mills, do you want to pay $8,000 for Alec Mills against the Royals? Maybe. Justice Sheffield, I'm not confident about him, so I think it's primarily up here in these 4 guys. Do you look at Plate IQ on its own at all, or just lineup HQ, since most of the stats are included? Yeah, Plate IQ is good if you want to like dig deep into specific statistics, but I rely on projections. So like the projections include everything, right? So like the bat, like Cardi's bat projections, or even because we at RotoGrind, if you're a premium member, you get sports info solutions, SIS projections. They include everything. That's the point of a projection model. It includes everything that you need to see. And it comes up with a number with a floor and a ceiling and a median right here. So anything that I'd look at would be double counting. So for instance, if I'm looking at these pitchers, for instance, or let's say these hitters, I'm going to go to hitters. I'm going to go by point per dollar or whatever, just fantasy points. I go Trevor Story or something. Let's go to Holland against Cruz. 9.8 median, right? 27 point ceiling. That represents but he's facing a lefty. Well, it's already in there. That's part of his median of 9.8. Oh, but he hits a certain pitch. It's already in there. Like that 9.8 median and the floor ceiling of 2 to 27 includes all of anything that would be relevant that is predictive in a projection model is already included in. So for me to he has a 9.8 median projection and he's facing a lefty is double counting because this number considers that already. Same thing in basketball. You go, I'm looking at a 32-point projection and he's facing the crappiest team and it's a high total. Well, it already includes that. You're just going to be double counted. So all the projections are combinations of all the stats you could possibly look at that would be relevant and gives you outcomes based on it. A median 50th percentile outcome and the 15th percentile and 85th percentile, right? That's what the floor and the ceiling are, kind of the 15th. Now, it's something that'll happen, they'll score at least 2 points at least 85% of the time. They'll score 28 points 15% of the time. That's what that means. That's what the floor and the ceiling means. Baseball, it's a little bit wider range of outcomes because of home runs, right? It's not likely that someone puts up 2 points, right? A walk, and it's also 3 home runs. I mean, you don't necessarily get the medians a lot of times. It's very Stan probably doesn't get 9 points today. He probably gets 3 or like 20, but nothing in the middle. But these are still medians. You're more likely to play 4-3-1 stacks on Fanduel on a big slate, right? Yes. The same concept applies on Fanduel. The more games, the more likely you should be heavily stacking or only stacking. The less games, you can make the case to stack less. Doesn't mean you don't stack, but on a 6-game slate, like on a 12-game slate on Fanduel, I'd be exclusively playing either 4-4 or 4-3-1. I would not consider anything else on a normal size slate, 10 plus games. As we get less and less, 5-game slate, yeah, now 3-3, 3-3-2, 3-3-1-1, 4-1-1-1-1, right? Just have 1 4-man stack and 4 one-offs, 4-2-1-1, those types of things. Even 2-2-2-2. I mean, maybe not that to that extent. The more games there are, there's more likelihood that one team becomes the team. That's the concept. That if there's 15 games going on, there's 30 teams that could possibly score 15 runs. And they're going to be owned by someone, right? Even if it's 1% owned. But likelihood of one of the teams putting up enough points that a 5-man stack wins a GPP is much higher. On a 5-game slate, there's only 10 teams. As opposed to 30. So, I mean, we've seen on 5-game slates, it could be one game is 2-0, another game is 5-2, another game is 3-1, another game is 4-4, 4-4-3, another game is 1-0. And like, yeah, the one team put up 5 runs, but probably 5 guys from that team didn't score enough for just putting up 5 runs. Is there going to be a team that puts up 8, 9, 10, 12 runs? More likely on larger slates. Ryan Norton says, I think you're overlooking the heavy splits in favor of Arrieta versus New York. I won't play him because of limited K upside, but Yankees very right-handed heavy versus big right-handed splits. No, I am considering that. That's what I do by looking at the projection. And it looks awful. Right? He's towards the bottom. He's 6,200. What's his upside? If that. If he even just doing run prevention. I'd rather play Montes, Rodon, or Duffy. It's already, all of what you said is already in the projection. So it's already giving me this. And it's based on a point per dollar scale, based on the bat, at least. Right? We got what? 8 games on the slate. So 16 pitchers? He's towards the bottom. Doesn't mean you don't play him. You can go play him. I won't. But I mean, those instances that you're mentioning, because of the right-hand heavy and his big splits, it's already in the projection, right? And he still grades it out to be fairly low, at least with Cardi's bat projections. How do you like the A's going against Sheffield? He's a lefty going against the A's team with a lot of right-handed power, in your opinion. I mean, the A's should be low-owned, right? I mean, Sheffield actually projects fairly well. Sheffield projects better than Arrieta against the A's. The A's have not been doing well. I mean, I played a ton of Kikuchi against the A's. So let's go to Oakland. 4.9 run total. The bat doesn't seem to like him all that much. Yeah. Look. Really? Look at these prices. You're going to be unique because no one's playing these guys. How do you play them at these prices? Marcus Semien is 5,000, 5K plus. Chapman, 5K plus. Laureano, 5K plus. Marcano's nearly 5K. Olsen's 5,400. Yeah, feel free to. No one's going to play them. Go for it. At these prices, let me look. This is nuts. Oakland at Seattle. I mean, you could get Colorado. Look, you could get Colorado. You get the Rockies with a 7-run total for that price. You get San Francisco even. For a cheaper. The core stacks are cheaper than the A's. You get the Yankees. Right? Much cheaper than the A's. Even Atlanta is cheap. I mean, Atlanta has a low run total. Minnesota is much cheaper, much higher run total. Yeah, you feel free to play the A's. No one's going to play them. That would be the reason. But from a projected standpoint, they grade out as probably the worst team on the slate. Point per dollar wise, other than maybe Chad Pinder if he's in the lineup, right, against the lefty. Right? Okay, he's fine. Maybe play a Chapman one-off or something. But look at these prices. This is ridiculous. If they were cheaper, sure. If they were in the mid 4Ks. But I don't know what DraftKings is thinking. Are they cheaper on Fanduel? Let's take a look at Fanduel. So I didn't consider the A's until I looked. I'm like, oh my God, how expensive are they? Let's take a look at okay, a little bit more bearable. But they're still expensive. Right? You still have to pay up. Right? You're still over 3K for every hitter. Compare that to Colorado. Yeah, Colorado is a little more expensive. You have to pay 4K for these guys. Yeah, San Fran is about comparable to the A's. Right? You play Dickerson, Yastrzemski, play those guys. Let's take a look at Minnesota. Minnesota's a little bit cheaper, especially with Garver being only 2,500. And then we got the Yankees. And the Yankees are cheaper. Look, Yankees are cheaper than the A's. Gleyber Torres is 3K. Aaron Hicks is 2,700 in that lineup. Yeah, I think on both sites, the A's are. You would play them because they're overpriced, but no one's going to play them. I mean, you're not playing them because they project well. You're playing them because then maybe they're 2% owned. I think, but I can't in my right mind pay $5,400 for Ramon Laureano when he's nearly the same price as Giancarlo Stanton. So I don't know. I don't know how you. I mean, yeah, they'll be lower owned. That's about it. Ryan Norton says you don't want to play Arrieta. I'm just saying the Yankee bats will be quieter when he's in there. Well, it's possible. Why are you saying the word will? I don't know, but there's a percentage of that time that happens. Yes. Remember, it's best to think probabilistically, not what will happen, but what's the probability of certain things happening. Will the A's at those prices be the top stack on this slate? There's a probability of that happening. It's not zero, okay? But it's not high. Maybe 2%, 3%, something like that. So it's not like it can't happen. Just like Jake Arrieta. You could throw 6 innings and strike out 5 and no hit them, right? There's a percentage of time that happens. Is it a high percentage of time? Not even close. Adam Haynes asks for GPP, what potential ownership percentage would you keep you off the starting pitcher? For example, Cole tonight. Don't think in terms of players, think in terms of lineups. I have no problem playing chalk as long as I'm playing in a lineup that doesn't have the rest of my lineup being chalk. So I have no problem looking on the slate, sort by point per dollar, playing Garrett Cole. His projection actually came down. He gets up to bad upstates like every 10 minutes or something. No, if Cole's going to be 50% owned, I just need to make sure that I play Cole in stacks that are lower owned. So it doesn't mean I don't play him. So you have to think in terms of lineups. So if Garrett Cole, it could be 90% owned. I may not play a lot of them, but I know in the lineups that I play Garrett Cole, I need to be different elsewhere, more different. I need to get more leverage elsewhere. Obviously, if I don't play Cole and he's 90% owned, which he's not going to be that owned, then I've already gotten tons of leverage by just not playing. So you think of your lineup as a whole. Look at this lineup preview. Think of how does the lineup look? You can play Garrett Cole, but then how does the rest of the lineup have to look for the contest that you're in? If you're playing a large field GPP, you need a lot of leverage in the rest of your lineup. If you're playing a single entry, you don't need as much. So you can still play Cole if he's going to be owned. Because we're going to see, like, let's say Minnesota. Like, if we go through, like, what the chalk kind of combination is going to be, I'm assuming we're going to see something like maybe Garver, Polanco, Cruz, maybe some type of Yankee, Minnesota type of lineup. Like, if I'm doing this, like, okay, I want to play Twins. I'm going to play, this type of 5-man stack, something like this. But now, like, how do I get different? Because, like, okay, I'm playing chalky guys. I'm playing a chalky stack with a chalky pitcher, right? Do I go to the White Sox? No, because they're going to be chalky, right? Do I go to the Colorado? No, they're going to be chalky. So I'm like, okay, where can I go off the board a little bit, right? So I take a look. Maybe I go to Chicago. I go against Duffy because Duffy may be popular. So I'm not going to play Duffy here, right? I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to play bats against Duffy, but it's going to be kind of hard with these prices. So maybe I play a Souza one-off in the outfield to figure out a way to get these bats in. So let's see. Let's go to the pitcher. Let's say I'm going to play Rodon in this spot. I have 47.50 left. And I go to hitter. So I'm like, I'm going to need, let's take a look. Can I get another Chicago bat? Maybe Bodie, right, in the second base spot. And I got 6. Okay. And then I could play whoever I want at that point, right? Do something like this. Not necessarily this exactly, but here's a way that I got Chalky Cola, Chalky Minnesota stack, but then I went off the board a little in my one-offs. Maybe instead of playing Souza down there, you play one-offs. You got Bodie here. You got Rizzo against a lefty, which like no one's going to play. And you got 3,400 left at an outfield spot, and you take a one-off. Let's see who's available. I'm not going to necessarily make this lineup. Let's go point per dollar. What I got, 3,400? Yeah, I could find someone here, right? 3,400. I mean, you could play like an Alex Gordon against Alec Mills or something. But Rizzo's going to be 1% owned at 5,300 at first base. Bodie will be against Duffy because people will play Duffy. Gordon, probably not much. So there you go. You could play Chalk Twins, Chalk Cole. Rodon's going to be decently owned, and you still have enough leverage, and you're fine. You're good. So it's just a matter, if you're going to play Chalk, what do you play in the rest of the lineup? Just like if you think the opposite. If you're going to play something really off the board, we're going to stack Oakland, overpriced Oakland, for instance. All right, let's go to overpriced Oakland. No one's playing. I mean, this is absurd to pay these prices. But let's say you're throwing Pinder in there, right? And Chapman and Simeon. You get your middle infielders. You get you get Canha and Laureano, something like this. Like no one's playing this. Like this is just absurd to pay this price for the Oakland on this slate. So once you do this, once you play the 5-man Oakland stack like this, just play the chalkiest guys everywhere. I mean, like you've got like this stack in and of itself is going to be so low enough owned that just play the chalk everywhere. Play the chalk catcher one off, the chalk first baseman one off, and the chalk outfielder one off with the chalk 2 pitchers. You're good. If this stack goes off, if Oakland puts up 10 runs, you're good. You win. You win the whole thing. You're good. Is a 5,000 entry single entry tournament considered large? It's whatever. It's a scale. There's no such thing as large field, small field. Remember what I said before about the amount of games and how the tendency to stack, right? More likely, less likely. Don't think in terms of, so is 5,000 large field and then 49.99, that's small field. Not like it's only the difference of one entry. The more entries there are, the more leverage you need. The less entries there are, the less leverage you need. There's a difference between a 30,000 entry contest and a 500,000 entry contest. Fanduel had a 1 million entry contest. The amount of leverage you need in that is much different than a 50,000 entry contest, which was what we normally get. A 300-man contest, you don't need as much leverage at all. That 1,000-man, a little bit more than that. 3,000, a little bit more than that. So it's a scale. So don't think in terms. When I use the term large field GPP, I'm talking about multi-entry, like the main, like the $15 150 max GPP on DraftKings. Like whatever that main one is, or on FanDuel, whatever, like the $4.44, whatever, 40,000, 50,000 entry, 150 max type of content. That's what I consider that when I call it large field. Anything that's single entry, I would never consider large field. I would just consider that a single entry, a big single entry contest, but not like a large, 100,000 the first, and pretty much by the time you get to like 20th place, it's like a set of steak knives. Camden Wallen, is NBA pregame going to come back? No, I'm sorry. I'm focused on baseball. And also, the NBA regular season is only going to be like, 2 weeks long, right? Hopefully, we'll have baseball longer than that, and then we get into the playoffs. So I'm sorry. If you want NBA stuff, wait till next season. When we're not playing them together. Typically by the time baseball starts up, it's kind of the end of the basketball season. We get into the playoffs. But I mean, obviously during December and January and November, we'd normally be doing NBA pregame type shows. Would someone like Stanton be under-owned in a Yankee stack because of his price? Maybe a little bit so. But I mean, he's still going to appear in Yankee stacks because, he's one of the Yankees. I think more likely people will try to jam him in. I think it's more likely that people, if this is the order, that, I'm just assuming that the top, they're gonna play all three outfielders. I don't see someone. I see Judge being more popular, but I see maybe Hicks not being, even though he's cheaper. But if you shove all three outfielders in, it doesn't give you much wiggle room to find players that aren't outfield eligible that you'd want to play. Catcher, first, third. Just be harder. It's harder to build stacks this way. You could have some that do this, sure. Use all three outfield spots. Just it's harder to weave two stacks together in a 4-4 or 5-3 or something like that by using all of your outfield spots. That's the reason why I don't do it as much. Bradley says, Blender, you're becoming super close in some of these $15 GPPs. Yeah. The past week, 2 top 10s. Came in 6th, came in 9th. Close, very close. But that's all you can do. Put yourself in the opportunity to get a top 10, and then at that point, it's variance. Build lineups that have good first place equity. Get up there, right? Don't be scared. We had one person in the bat chat that, the day that Luis Castillo was chalk, like 68% owned, he just said, screw it. I'm going to stack against him. And he actually did extremely well that day because Castillo didn't do horribly, but he got hit by the Tigers. And he just said, nope, I'm going to play the Tigers vomit stack, 5-man Tigers vomit stack, and it worked out. And all those guys were like 1% owned. But you have to understand in those types of lineups, a lot of the time you're going to come in last place doing it, right? Or come in first. Those are the types of lineups that you should be building, not safe lineups for large field GPPs. Don't worry about minimum cashing. Worry about how much equity do I have in first place with this line. Tony Tischauer asks, with Judge hot streak likely pushing ownership high, do you go under on him? It's not about players, man. It's about lineups. If I'm playing Yankees today, I will be playing Aaron Judge. I'm going to play Yankee stacks and just not have Judge in any of my lineups. Yes, Judge's ownership probably will be inflated today. So that just means if I have Judge in my lineup, I have to assume that he's going to be higher owned. And what does the rest of my lineup need to look like to give me enough leverage by playing Aaron Judge or by playing a Yankee stack with Aaron Judge? Because he's still a good play individually. Aaron Judge, if he comes in at 28% ownership, he's probably overowned, right? Less likely to play as a one-off. Play him in stack, sure. It's correlated with obviously the rest of my lineup. But I'd probably be under. If he's 28% owned, I'm less likely to have him as a one-off. I may still have some one-offs, but he'd only be a one-off in very contrarian stacks or with contrarian pitchers. Doesn't mean I don't play him at all. Some days maybe I would just decide to X him out. It depends on what I'm trying to do on that given day. So do we got anything else before we go? This was a productive Monday. A lot of times Mondays aren't productive. Everyone's just, it's the weekend's over. Gotta not go to work. Does anyone leave for work anymore these days? I don't know. Does anyone go outside anymore? Mask up if you do. But hopefully we got baseball for the rest of the week. I know that Manfred's having a meeting or something. But it was good that the Phillies, there's no one positive from the Phillies. But now the Cardinals have a problem. The Marlins apparently are going to be playing soon. With what players, I have no idea. I don't know what their lineup's going to look like. But we'll see that for the rest of the week. Britt will be on Wednesday for the pregame show. I will be back on Friday. And I believe that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're kind of playing it by ear on RotoGrinders because we got the slates, and the NBA slates sometimes include the early game, sometimes they don't. We got other shows going on. So I will catch you next time on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.